All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Pfeiffer, and this is Conversations on Retail. It's a beautiful day in Northwest Arkansas. We are here today with TJ Sangam, the co-founder and CEO of SupplyPike. TJ, how are you?
Hey, thanks, Matt. Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, I have had the opportunity over the last several months to work with a good number of folks on your team, and frankly, have just kind of fallen in love with your organization and all the things you're doing. And I've gotten to know your business by way of the classes that were being taught in partnership with Supplier Community. But this is a great opportunity for me to get to know you and obviously more about the founding, history and kind of vision for SupplyPike. So I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to do that. So without digging too much into the story, tell me what is SupplyPike today?
SupplyPike today, well, we are a software company that helps consumer packaged goods win at retail. So what we do is we plug into all their different data sources. So if you're a consumer packaged goods company, we plug into your carriers, your warehouses, your retailer, and we centralize and aggregate all the data. So we're the central nexus of your data. And then since we have visibility across your supply chain, we can identify places where there are supply chain inefficiencies and places where you're losing money. For example, maybe you're losing to compliance fines, or maybe you're losing because your replenishment's not very good. And then we have very specific targeted apps that we've built to help get to the root cause of those issues. So let's say your replenishment's not doing well, we can tell you exactly why your in-stock's low. Or if you have deductions issues, we can tell you exactly if you have shortages, or if you have overages, or if you're not shipping your products there on time. And if there are money that you're being lost because of miscommunication between the retailer and the CPG, we can identify those and rectify those too. So people love us because we can actually get the money back, which they're losing to these inefficiencies.
So the most fun part about these conversations for me, obviously I love getting to know spending time with entrepreneurs and learning about the companies and the things that they do. But what I enjoy the most is really getting to know the people. And so what I'd love to do before we dig into kind of everything case stack and forward with you is kind of maybe go all the way back and talk about upbringing and how you ended up at the University of Arkansas, right? So how did you end up? How did you end up in the States? How did you end up at the U of A? Talk about childhood and your upbringing and kind of that transition to the U of A.
Dang. Okay, we're going all the way back.
All the way back.
Okay. Well, I am from India, and I came to the U of A to do my undergraduate degree in computer engineering, physics, and math. And I really liked it here, so I stayed. I've been here for like almost 15 years now. So my background's very, very much in the sciences. It's not really in retail. My original intention was to go into silicon fabrication. I wanted to build like microprocessor chips. But then I was quickly, once I took a few classes in like digital circuit design where you had to stare at ones and zeros all day long, I was like, I didn't want to do that anymore. So I switched to computer science, more on the software side of things. Did my master's in computer science here at the U of A, and then did a bunch of startups. I decided that I could make the most impact at startups. I had worked at a few failed startups, started a couple of failed startups, and then eventually ended up talking to Dan, who is the founder of KStack. And for those who don't know, KStack just had an exit a few years ago. They sold their company to Hub Group for over $250 million. So Dan hired me to sort of start a research and development group inside of KStack. And so we collaborated and built a bunch of software to solve these supply chain problems. And that's kind of where I learned a lot about supply chain and got sort of my toes wet. And then as we were sort of building these apps, we recognized that the apps that we built could be leveraged outside of just KStack. It could be beneficial to the larger consumer packaged goods community in general. So that's kind of why we sort of spun off this division from KStack into its own self-standing company, which is now SupplyPike. But since the acquisition, KStack's acquisition by Hub Group, SupplyPike is basically arm's length with KStack. We're not really sort of doing anything with them anymore. We're sort of our own company. And we focus purely on software for these consumer packaged goods. So that's kind of like a whirlwind history of like where I came from and sort of how I ended up here.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that the relationship with Dan has been like really, really important, if not critical to your career. Talk a little bit about, Dan and how you met him and how you got involved with K-Stack and what some of those early couple of years were like in that research and strategy role.
Yeah. Dan was actually one of the investors, or probably an advisor to one of the startups that I used to work at, but I didn't really know him that well then. We really sort of got to know each other because we were on the same flight to LA. So I was actually on my way out of Arkansas because I wanted to work at startups, and there was a lot of startups in the Valley. And I was trying to. My wife was working and was now studying in LA at the time, so I was on a flight there. I used to go back and forth a lot, and I saw Dan in a flight, and we started talking, and that's kind of how we got to know each other. So Dan, like most of like what I know about leadership and how to lead teams, I learned from Dan. He's been a pretty big influence and sort of how I manage people and manage teams and all of that. But Dan gave me the freedom to build products and make mistakes and scale up teams and do all of that stuff. So definitely a lot of gratitude to him. And while we were at K-Stack, a lot of what we did was build software internally for K-Stack and across K-Stack's different teams. So I got a chance to work with their consolidation team, with their warehouse team, with their transportation team, with their item team, with their compliance team. And I really tried to learn the ins and outs of supply chain there. So it was a pretty cool experience. Just floating around. I didn't really have like a specific job inside of K-Stack. But I think that all really helped prep me for, the job that I do now.
And so some of that pioneering sort of research and what I would call tinkering work that you did inside K-Stack that would ultimately become SupplyPike, was that always the intention? Was there always the intention that you were going to create these things and then spin them off? Or was it in the beginning, at least, was it really more about enhancing the capabilities and the value within K-Stack to the existing customer base?
Yeah, I think initially we were purely focused on K-Stack.
Yeah.
Like K-Stack, I don't know if people are familiar with K-Stack's business, but they are a 3PL consolidator. So CPGs ship their products to K-Stack's warehouses where they get consolidated into full truckloads and then sent to the retailer DCs. So our team built all the software that actually did the 3D packing of the trucks. Like, how do you get all these different CPGs? How do you organize it into an efficient truckload? And then the next step is, how do you actually schedule these trucks? Because they're doing multiple pickups and multiple drop-offs across multiple warehouse campuses. So making an optimal sort of supply chain, that transportation was a big chunk of what we worked on. We also worked on a TMS that we built specifically for K-Stack, and they still use it to this day. It still powers upwards of $60 million of freight operations on the software that we built for them. So that's the kind of tech we focused on. It's very specific to K-Stack. And only towards the end, we started looking at, forecasting and how CPGs, where are the inefficiencies that lie in the CPGs and how can we help them? When we started exploring that problem, it found out that a lot of these problems are cascading. Like, you're going to have like in-stock problems because you didn't set up the item correctly in Walmart. Like that's how much these problems cascade. So when we started looking through this, we decided that if you want to solve it and make CPGs more efficient, you really have to start from the beginning and then try to build these solutions across the entire horizontal. And that's kind of been our vision since. Our goal is to eventually build applications that streamline the entire supply chain from manufacturing all the way to being in the store. But we're being very strategic with which problems we tackle first.
Yeah, well, which leads me to my next question. Take a minute to talk about the various product offerings of SupplyPike: Retail Intelligence Tool, Deductions Navigator, OTIF Radar.
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said earlier, what SupplyPike at its heart is that it is it's a central data aggregator. It's a central repository of CPG data. So now that we have all this data, we built several apps that layer on top of this data. One of our apps is Deductions Navigator, which is our most popular app, and for those who are not super familiar with retailer deductions, a retailer sends you a purchase order for a certain amount of items. And and when you ship the items, sometimes the retailer might say either you didn't ship the product on time, or we didn't get the amount of product we ordered, or you sent too much product. There's a handful of reason codes where the retailer might fine you. They might just withhold the money that they're supposed to pay to you. Where SupplyPike comes in is that since we know your entire supply chain, we know what actually happened. We know when you actually got there versus what the retailer claims that when you got there. So since we know those 2 data points, we can actually create a claim with the retailer and get the money back for you. And we handle a slew of deduction codes, and there's a whole bunch of them. So that is our hottest selling product, mainly because there's immediate ROI. As soon as you purchase a software, you can start recovering money back, and people see upwards of 10,000% in ROI in our deductions app. There's also other apps like OTIF app, which is also another type of compliance fine, but this one's on the accounts receivable side, where deduction is more on the accounts payable side. Very similar concept, but this one sort of helps you figure out why those fines even came about. So maybe your carriers weren't performing to your expectations, or maybe your warehouses weren't performing to your expectations, and try and identify the root cause of that and giving you some remedial measures. So that's probably also a really hot selling app. And then finally, what we want to do was our third app, which is Retail Intelligence, is that we want to prevent those fines from happening in the first place. So you really want to start early in the supply chain, which is replenishment. If you can fix your replenishment, it fixes all the downstream problems of compliance, really. So we take a look at how much products you have across the different distribution centers, across the different stores, or your manufacturing facility. We look at your forecast. We look at the demand, so we can sort of propagate this demand down your supply chain and see that, make sure you have enough product across your supply chain to meet that demand. And if you don't, we can actually compute a lost sale projection. So for example, we expect the demand for your makeup to be $1,000, and if you don't, since you don't have enough product, you're going to lose those $1,000 because you don't have enough product in this warehouse that's like 2 layers down from the store. So we can project multiple weeks ahead of how much money you're going to lose. So that's our retail intelligence tool. In addition to that, we also do a lot of like ad hoc reporting, just sort of data querying type stuff as well. So that's kind of like a super zoomed out view of what we do.
One of the things I like about, two things I'll say. I want to get the first one out of the way, and then we'll talk about the second one. But you do a lot of the kind of the heavy lifting, as you say on the website, so companies can focus on what really matters, which is growing their business. And I love that. The other thing I love about your business, maybe even more than that, is you've got a sliding scale with respect to pricing that doesn't keep the smaller companies from participating, right? Your pricing is based on sales volume.
Yeah, that's right. When we started SupplyPike, we wanted to be different. We wanted to be like a lot of enterprise software companies are very opaque. It's very difficult to get pricing. It's very difficult to see even what the product looked like. You have to talk to 14 different salespeople and have a bunch of conversations. We don't want to do any of that. We want to be as transparent as we can. So that's kind of why, if you go to our website, you can actually go to our pricing page and see exactly what it's going to cost for your size of business. So we try, even though we're B2B enterprise software, we sort of try to treat ourselves like B2C software. So it's very friendly. It's very easy to use. It doesn't need a lot of training. You can purchase it and start using it in a week without ever having to talk to anybody, which is kind of what we were hoping for from the beginning. And the reason that we're so transparent with our pricing is because we're very confident in the ROI for the customer. We're pretty sure that, like if you pay for this, you can get at least 2, 3, several times more than what you pay for.
Excuse me. It's long been said that, and we used to say it all the time at Walmart, when times got tough, it's like, well, we just need sales, sales cure all. But when retailers stop opening so many stores and a supplier team has to squeeze more and more productivity in terms of brick and mortar, squeeze more and more productivity out of the same amount of square footage, essentially, the work that you're doing to make sure that you're not just generating sales, but you're generating profitable sales becomes all the more important. Are you seeing that sort of mindset shift away from let's just generate sales at all costs to really looking more closely at the business and trying to figure out how to squeeze more and more productivity out of all, every dollar?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of money lost to supply chain inefficiencies. There's only so much you could do to get more sales. You get more store distribution, or you get more space on the shelf or something like that. But there is a lot that but the iceberg that you don't see is the fines that the CPGs get hit with. It can be up to 20% of like what their invoice is. Like that's how much they're losing to fines. And a lot of them don't even know it, and most of them don't even know what to do about it, because a lot of them, their expertise is in making the product. I mean, if you're making kind bars, like your expertise is in making those kind bars. You don't actually know about supply chain, especially for the smaller guys. It's a real pain point for them. The larger guys, they have big teams that can handle this. Yeah. So supply chain inefficiencies is a really big challenge, and that's kind of where we come in. We help analyze and we find all these little places that you're losing money to. And once you do it, like we've actually helped customers from the brink of bankruptcy because they just didn't have enough cash flow to sort of even make payroll or to manufacture the product. And we've recovered enough money for them where they're able to sort of sustain. So it's it's a real problem.
So, and again, forgive my ignorance. I don't play in the supply chain space, but how is it that the retailer, Walmart in this case, gets it so wrong that they would, how is it that they would calculate it one way, and then as you dig into the data, you see it a different way? Why is it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Why are there these discrepancies?
Why are there discrepancies? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I think it's
because they've got to be looking at the same data, right? And obviously it's not an integrity lapse. I mean, they believe it's their money and supplier believes it's not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You would think that this problem shouldn't exist, but
Right.
I think it exists probably because it's all done by hand. When you receive product, like there's actually a guy sort of receiving it and writing all this stuff by hand and sort of typing all this into a system. And then it like probably traverses across like 4 or 5 different people where errors sort of accumulate. And I think that's probably where I think it just could be just a sort of a cause of the size. When you just get so big and you have such scale, errors just happen. I think that's probably why it happens. But I don't think it's actually malicious. I think it's just it makes total sense from the retailer perspective, right? Because what the retailer wants is they want to service their customers well, which is the shoppers. And they want to be excellent in like making sure that there's product always on the shelf. If people order their products online, they can deliver to them 2 days. And the only way they can do that is by expecting a lot from their suppliers, by having these compliance criteria. So it makes total sense on the retailer side as well. It's just that like the CPGs are just not able to cope with these requirements. I think it's just a lack of like domain knowledge, probably.
Yeah.
And that's where SupplyPike comes in. We are software that sort of bakes in all this domain knowledge. So we're not just, when you buy SupplyPike software, you don't just buy software. You buy, like almost a decade of supply chain knowledge just baked into it.
So COVID obviously accelerated a tremendous amount of change in a lot of different areas. And this whole idea of, slowing down store growth and a faster movement toward online. I'm just wondering in what ways you have seen the business change the most profoundly as a result of how the whole world has changed in terms of how we shop and how we purchase and consume.
Definitely a big change. The most obvious one is the move towards online. But store sales were also up a lot. It seems kind of counterintuitive that during a pandemic store sales would go up, but I guess it's more nuanced than that. I guess it's because it's for certain types of products. Certain products did really well, but certain products like makeup, we actually released a report on our website. You can probably go and download it at supplypike.com. about which brands succeeded a lot during the pandemic and which brands were affected the most. And it was pretty interesting to see. Like there's definitely things like makeup like dog food or probably something like that, they were much more severely affected. But things like recreational stuff, like people like the ones that sort of related to hobbies, uh, and sort of so those kind of things really went up a lot. So I don't know if there's one clear answer. I think the answer is a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier this idea of, or the situation where a supplier was like hanging on for dear life in terms of survival. And I'm just
Mhm.
wondering if COVID has accelerated any of this mind set change that we were talking about a few moments ago, in terms of we've got to take a much closer look at our business because we're giving too much of this away. Has COVID impacted that mindset change?
Mm. COVID's definitely put a lot of pressure on CPGs. There was a
Yeah.
lot of CPGs who went out of business because they were just not able to meet with were able to handle the fluctuations of the business and the sort of the pressure put on the retailer and the pressure put on by COVID. So it really did force uh, some of the suppliers to go out of business, but also it made a lot of suppliers stronger too. They were much more picky. They were able to sort of make sure that prioritize the SKUs that sold well and sort of focus their business a lot, and get better at like sort of focus on supply chain efficiency. Because if you suddenly have this extremely volatile supply and demand, your manufacturing has to be just as elastic to handle this elastic supply and demand. So I think it definitely put a lot more pressure on CPGs to be more resilient to things like that.
Yeah. Does Supply Pike have a sweet spot in terms of the types of suppliers, the size, the stage, the category, where you seem to be the most effective, whether it's, dry grocery, fresh apparel, general merchandise, seasonal? Is there an area where you're stronger than others?
Dry grocery, I would say. I would say a lot of our customers are dry grocery, but again, it's just software at the end of the day, so it does
Yeah.
generalize across any sort of department. I think I was looking at it the other day. We have customers in over like 50 departments or something like that.
Hmm.
So we span the range, but I think dry grocery we have a lot of concentration.
Yeah. So the business was obviously launched in Northwest Arkansas, heavy, if not exclusive focus on Walmart and their supplier community. But what's the future look like for Supply Pike, not only in terms of various retailers where you may support, but new applications, new solutions?
Yeah, our goal, like I said earlier, is to tackle the entire like the horizontal of the supply chain. We want to go everything from the initial setting up of the items to making sure the items actually on the shelf. And we've been very strategic about the types of products and the order that we build these products in. So, like I said earlier, we have deductions, OTIF, retail intelligence, and replenishment are the things that we have focused on. So on the horizon, we want to focus across a little bit more on the replenishment side. Our goal is to completely automate replenishment, where you can where the software will essentially tell you what you need to do, how much product you need to have in which warehouses, and even do the actions for you, actually helping you orchestrate moving the products across your supply chain, where all you have to do is tell our software where your products are, and it'll tell you and sort of manage your products across based on the volatilities of supply and demand. That is something that we're working on now, and it'll probably take us a little bit to build it out. We also plan on expanding across more retailers. The thing is that we go really deep when we start with a retailer. We spend a lot of time understanding the nuances, the nitty-gritties, and the idiosyncrasies of each retailer. So even though it takes us a little while to expand from one retailer to another, our software is very deep and very detailed and well thought out for every retailer. So the next retailer we're working on is going to be Kroger and Target. So those are the ones that are in our immediate horizon. And obviously the big ones like Amazon and all of that will be in our roadmap too.
So when would you anticipate there being an announcement about that next retailer? Is it months away? Is it more than that?
It's going to be in Q3, end of Q3, I think. So we'll probably make an announcement. We've got a lot of really cool products that have been in R&D for the last 6 months or so.
Hmm.
So we'll have some new product launches, new announcements coming up. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So I want to shift away briefly from SupplyPike and really spend a few minutes kind of getting to know you better. You're young, but the career that you've had so far, you've spent a lot of time in research and strategy, and now, running this this fast moving startup company. But I'm curious, as someone that's really always kind of scanning the market and looking at things that are broken and contemplating solutions. If you weren't working on this, what would you be working on? What are the things that are kind of exciting to you outside of the work that you're doing at SupplyPike that have piqued your curiosity?
Outside of the work that I do,
Yeah.
oh man, I have a lot of interests. I don't know.
And if there was another entrepreneurial endeavor, would those curiosities draw you in that direction?
Yeah. I've always been a startup guy. So I have more ideas than I have time to work on.
Hmm.
I think there's definitely, just even in supply chain, there's a lot of interesting problems to solve. For example, one of the problems that I've noticed a lot in supply chain is that like there's a lot of different supply chain software. You have to go to your carrier's website, you have to go to your retailer's website, you have to go to your warehouse website, and there's a lot of different context switching. So one of the ideas that we've sort of debated internally, we probably won't work on this right now, but maybe sometime in the future, is having like an almost a machine learning system that sort of watches you sort of use across all these systems and sort of deeply understands the tasks that you're trying to accomplish. And eventually you can replay these actions. So let's say I want to track an order, or I want to know where a shipment is, or I want to move inventory from one warehouse to another. These are all actions that supply chain professionals do all the time. What if a machine could like deeply understand these and replay these actions across these websites whenever you want, like ad hoc? So that would be like a really interesting problem to solve. There are some problems outside of supply chain I think about a lot, which is around knowledge management and information management. Like I read a lot of books, and I read I got information on my Kindle, I got my Audible, I got my Wikipedia, and I read books. So like organizing all this information and sort of making sure that I don't forget all of this, making sure I can recall all of this has been a problem, and I've tried to find solutions that don't exist. So that would be like an interesting problem to solve someday. But I don't know, I could probably keep talking about stupid ideas, but.
Well, this isn't about me at all, but I made a post yesterday on LinkedIn, basically throwing up my hands and saying, for the past 16 years, I've had more ideas than I've had time. I've not done a great job, frankly, at running any of the companies I've started, and we'll have a kind of a future conversation about
Yeah.
that. But this idea that, you know what, I'm just gonna focus on just flipping ideas essentially. But that's another story for another time.
The curse of the entrepreneur. It's
Oh, it is.
it's focus. It's really hard to focus when there's like so many ideas that are cool on the horizon.
Well, and I think the best part and the worst part of being an entrepreneur is there is no, obviously when investors are involved, there's accountability, but as an entrepreneur, essentially you wake up every single day deciding what you want to work on, and there's ultimate reward and ultimate accountability, and only to yourself in the end. But it's crazy.
I agree.
So helping us to know you better outside of running this exciting company. How do you spend your time? What's important to you in your life outside work?
How do I spend my time?
Yeah.
I mostly work. I work from the time I wake up till the time I go to bed, probably. Because we're in a very critical stage of the company. We've really only started commercializing our products early last year, and we've grown something like 800% since then. So it's like fast moving chaos company. So there's like stuff that needs attention all the time. So work really keeps me busy, but I try to read as much as I can in all my free time. Like there's lots of other things that I want to do. Like I want to play the guitar. I want to learn how to dance. I wanted to learn how to do improv. There's all these things that sort of are exciting that I try to do occasionally. I run and I work out. So just a bunch of small stuff like that. Yeah. But it's mostly just work, I think.
Yeah. So one of the things in Northwest Arkansas, there's been kind of this entrepreneurial boom that's gone on for several years now, but the rest of the country is kind of found a second wave with COVID. A lot of people seeking, a startup, even a micro startup as an occupational alternative. And I just wonder, as someone who spent a lot of time working with startups, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's either contemplating, you know, bypassing college or just graduating from college or maybe leaving a job that they don't love to do a startup? What are maybe some of the lessons that you've learned, the mistakes that you've made, the things that you wish you would have known or listened to when someone shared with you as you were getting started that might impact someone positively?
Um, the thing about mistakes, I think, is that like it doesn't matter what advice you give. Like I feel like you have to experience the mistakes to fully internalize that knowledge. Because I kind of had all these sort of wisdom and these like aphorisms sort of handed to me when I was younger, but I didn't know what they meant until I experienced the pain and I was able to like be like, oh, that's what that thing meant. You know, they sound so cliched and trite until you actually experience it, and then you finally internalize what those mean. So I think what you have to do is just do it. And then when you do it, you'll feel the pain and then you'll learn. I don't know if there's any advice I could give. The advice I could give is
Yeah.
just do it. And we live in a time of infinite leverage. It's so easy to start a company now. Like you can go to Stripe and register a company with their Atlas program in like 10 minutes. You can start receiving payments. You can, like, if you need to set up like how to sign up users, how to like create a web app, how to deploy it, all of that you could probably do in a weekend. Like there's so much leverage that you can get with technology now. So I feel like anybody could do it. And the advice is do it. Just learn it and do it. And then the advice, I think you'll just figure it out as you go, as you feel the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think Supply Pike's going to look like 5 years from now? And where will you be in 5 years? I mean, will Supply Pike be doing essentially the same things just across different retailers, standing up more capabilities? Will the business look dramatically different?
Um, we do have a vision, but we're always iterating and changing
Of
all the
course.
time. Um, our vision is for SupplyPike to be the single app that you use if you are a CPG to handle all your retailer operations. And our goal is to leverage machine learning to automate every single piece of the CPG supply chain sort of landscape. We've started with accounts payables and accounts receivables, and we're going to go work on replenishment, and then eventually we'll start tackling problems around maybe marketing and maybe distribution and e-commerce. And then eventually what we'll do is we'll start building meta tools that sort of go across these different individual verticals, because these verticals are still kind of siloed. So imagine like this one software that you connect, and it doesn't matter what service provider you use, it doesn't matter what warehouse you use or which carrier you use or what retailer you use, you can plug in SupplyPike and we'll tell you exactly what you need to do next. Here's like a prioritized rank ordered list of what you need to tackle to make sure you don't lose these sales or make sure you don't lose this amount of money. You know, that's really our dream. So I think in 5 years, I think hopefully we'll sort of actualize that vision. Um, and um, and that's a lot of work to get there.
Yeah. How big a team do you have? I should have asked this earlier, but I know you've got a large team of developers. Are all those developers here? Are they scattered? And
Yeah,
just kind of curious about the team that you've got.
yeah, all of them are here. We've got a
Okay.
team of about 55 people in Fayetteville.
Hmm.
The vast majority of them are engineers, so all of our engineers are here. Um, and we've got engineering teams, we've got design teams, we've got like a UI UX team, we've got sales teams, marketing teams, and then most importantly, a customer success team. So yeah, they're all here.
As I mentioned before, you're young and not terribly young. You're just a lot younger than me. And so, but this question, I think it's important to kind of frame it that way. You had a lot of really great things to say about Dan Sanker and his impact on your career and your leadership style and some of the things that you picked up. And I'm curious how you would want people to remember you, not as if you're at the end of your life
Oh,
looking back, not as if you're at the end of your life looking back, but looking at the season of your life, and how would you want the people that you're leading today, the customers you're working with today, the people in your personal life you're interacting with today, how would you want them to remember you during the season of your life?
How would we want? I guess if I were to compress it to one word, I would say care. Like we care. We care about our employees. We care about their well-being. We care about their personal development. We make sure that they are self-actualized. Same thing for our customers. We care about our customers. We want to make sure that if they are paying us money, they're getting their money's worth. We're not just taking their money for funsies. We actually want to make sure we provide good ROI, and we'll go above and beyond to give them more value than they pay us for. So I think that really fundamentally sort of underlines everything that I do and everything that SupplyPike does. Sort of give more than you take.
So my last question would be, anyone that has an interest in getting to know you and your team and its capabilities better, initiating a conversation to learn about how you can make some impacts in their business, what's the best way to engage?
Best way to engage? Well, you can shoot me an email. My email is just tj@supplypike.com. Happy to talk to people. If you're interested in demoing our software or trying out our software, you don't even have to talk to a person. Just go to supplypike.com, and then our website has all the instructions. So you can try it out and see if it's a good fit. If you're interested in sort of working at SupplyPike, we've been growing like crazy, like I said, and we're hiring all kinds of supply chain professionals. If you have experience in supply chain, if you have experience in sort of replenishment, we're looking for people to help us build good software. We're obviously, like all companies, we're also hiring engineers, and developers, and designers, all of that too. So yeah, just shoot me an email.
It really is an exciting time to be certainly in Northwest Arkansas. It's an exciting time to be working in retail and with CPG, and having had an opportunity to kind of sit in and eavesdrop as your team is teaching classes, and then the one-on-one interaction that I've had with Melody and a handful of others, and then conversations I've had with folks who are your customers about their experience. You all should be just incredibly proud of what you built so far, and excited about what the future holds for you. So TJ Sangam, co-founder and CEO of SupplyPike, it has been an absolute delight getting to know you and getting to know the story of SupplyPike a little bit better. And I wish you and your team the greatest of success going forward.
For sure. Thanks, Matt. It was great talking to you.
Likewise. Have a great day.